Welcome to the Sub-Bud Podcast, your entry into the land of no easy answers, as we journey through the vagaries of the mind, attempting to unravel the mysteries of why our brains brain.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome to the Sub-Bud Podcast, your land of no easy answers.
None whatsoever to be found.
None.
You would think that at some point, we'll get to some sort of answer to these
Like,
things.
we've been watching this show for years, and not a single conclusion has ever been drawn.
We have had conclusions, however,
That's true.
most of them were mostly stupid and don't.
Hey, there are no
gonna-
stupid conclusions. Well, thanks for joining us again, everybody. This is Erin Stewart.
Hey!
I am Kristen Remore. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of
It's
our
right there. You know
fun,
you want to.
crazy antics. And just in case an answer ever develops, you don't want to miss out on that. So go ahead, click that now.
Yes, well, we are talking about dating today, and of course,
Oh, modern dating again.
anybody that's been out there knows there is no easy answer to
Oh,
any
dear
of
God, are there
that.
no easy answers?
That would be too easy, and therefore, yeah.
So this is a subject that comes up a lot, and we actually do get a lot of requests and people talking about this. So let's get into it again.
And an ongoing thing that a lot of, a couple people out there, so I've heard, are going through this dating thing. And, it's one of those things where it feels like most of the advice that is out there would not be of the, let's say, good variety.
Well, honestly, I don't know what the fuck is going on out there. I mean,
I have questions myself, and I'm not even in there.
It is an absolute disaster out there. I don't know what's going through people. I don't know what has developed, but it is a fucking nightmare. And what we're getting into today is kind of, and this might actually just be a big city thing too. Right? So I'd be eager to hear from people that maybe live in smaller places. Do you have an easier time dating? But especially in the city. Oh my God. So the topic for today is kind of about commitment in general. And this idea of the phenomenon of everyone not being ready for relationships and not knowing what they want, and everything is just keep it casual and figure it out. And, okay, that's all well and good when you're younger. But, the hypothetical people we're talking about in this episode.
That have no basis in reality and cannot be tied to any real person in any way whatsoever, so our lawyers have said.
But, like when you're hitting a certain point, and you know what, even maybe that's even unfair because it doesn't even matter. This idea of not wanting to connect with another person. And I think it's just quite ridiculous, actually, because it's a bit of a selfish cop-out in a way, because everybody has relationships. Like you have relationships with your friends, with your family, with your coworkers. These are all types of relationships, right? So this whole phenomenon of people just, I'm just so shit at relationships. Like, no, okay, you're hesitant, maybe fearful, maybe you're just too fucking egotistical to want to consider being accountable to somebody outside of yourself. Maybe that's it. Or do we just live in a world where maybe it's not necessary to have these intimate partnerships anymore? Maybe people are just that fulfilled that they're comfortable keeping things casual. And, it's just such a huge change that we've been witnessing over the last, I don't know, I'd say 5 years or so.
Since the beginning of the social media version of
It does
dating.
seem to, coincide a little bit. But, what we really want to get into is, like, why has this happened, right? And as you all know on this show, we don't like to demonize people. It's, really easy just to be like,
we demonize demons.
That person's an asshole, or they're a bitch, or they're, whatever. And realistically, people are all just people, and everyone's kind of struggling through. But we need to kind of dissect a little bit. Like, it's such a weird thing to suddenly be pushing away connection, Or is it pushing away? Maybe you're gaining more connection by...
Well, I wonder if pandemic kind of really exacerbated a lot of it, right? I mean, social media was providing this, like, false, say, bridge that was supposed to be, you know, allowing us to reach out to our family and blah, blah, blah. When in reality, once that all got taken away, you realize that it's these actual like physical, like touching people connections that was the part that we were missing, right? Like the idea that you can replace that with this algorithmic computer that's telling you this is the best view of these people that you can, right, is incongruous with what people are. You know, there's no way we're just the happy fun times, the pictures that you see on all these,
Yeah.
right? Like it's just not conceivable. Everybody shits, you know, and the idea that you know, you're not, you know, putting those out there when you happen to shit, right? Builds this
So
idea
one
that
should put on their dating profile a picture.
won't take shit, won't give shit. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's gonna come down to shit eventually anyway, right? It's either it was good shit or
It
bad
always
shit. It's one or the other, you know. But yeah, but I mean, just it's interesting and to see where it's come from the days of having to go to like a bar, you know, get all dressed up, you know, put your most presentable self forward in order to actually like go in and meet someone and have to woo them, you know, with your charm and your wit, you know.
Well, and here's the thing as well, right? And I'm sure I've talked about this a lot. Like, as any of you that follow this show know, I'm not a fan of social media. I'm not a fan of chatting with strangers on the internet. And but I find it's like that is taking away that level, right? So if instead of like you're saying you meet somebody organically and you have to go and use your words and actually connect, instead we're connecting, and I'll use quotation marks around that. In a really strange way that actually is, in my opinion, kind of meaningless because it's all just projection.
It's connecting with a cue.
Okay.
Yeah. Right? You know, like, sort of like connecting, but not like
But
not even
not.
a QU, not even a proper. No, it's just a Q. Sure, I don't even.
Yeah. It's fake connection for sure. And because it's projecting, right? So if this is you're just chatting and you know, and you talk to friends about this all the time and it's like, "Oh, this person seems so great. We talk about blah 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 blah." And it's like, no, this is a projection. You've read something, the same as you read a novel or anything on paper, and then your brain compiles together what you think it looks like, and that's based, guess what, 100% on you. Because anyone else will read the same novel and what they are putting together in their brain is going to be a completely different picture when realistically you've just read the exact same words.
Well, let's take this into the new age, text. Because this is kind of my problem with texting is that I don't know how you're going to read that text.
Yeah.
Even if I put an emoji in there, if you decided to read it as a nefarious or malicious or in any way, right, like not the meaning that I was trying to get across with that at all, you know, how now I've got to spend an hour's worth of texting back and forth to try to get to know. I was just trying to say that. No, it wasn't that. I was just trying to say if we could just, you know. And this is where like I'm the old school. Like my partner and I were talking today, but like I was at the beginning of the internet. I was at the beginning of like even phones. The idea that, you know, we went from a place where like if you wanted to talk to somebody, you had to wait for them to be home. Right? Like, and if they were out somewhere, you just couldn't get a hold of them. You had to call their house, leave a message on their voicemail. There was an actual like machine that you had to attach to your phone in order to collect these messages, right? Like, you know, the idea that we've come from there and now, you know, and I feel like some of the context was lost. You know, you think about when you're talking to someone on the phone, you can't see their face. And so you lose that little bit of context to begin with, right? Well, now when you strip out the emotional content of my voice even, well, now this text thing just becomes a whatever you want to, whatever filters, whatever biases you want to apply to this thing is now, right, what's going to happen. And I get no control over that to, you know, whatsoever. So.
And that's the basis of communication for most people now is texting, and particularly within the dating world. I mean, most people now do online, which is again you're texting majority, and people are going back to kind of the whole topic, just reluctant to have that connection, right? And I'll actually share a story. This is from a while ago, but
Ooh,
yeah. And I went on kind of like a phone
once
cleanse.
upon a
This
time.
was, yeah, a few years ago, went on a phone cleanse. It was just like, I had like a landline at the time, crazy. So I was like, okay, that's fine. My friends knew it was up. And so if people wanted to get a hold of me, they could. And I was at the grocery store, and then, some guy starts chatting me up in the cheese aisle. I was like, great, he loves cheese. This is awesome, right? Good connection, sure. It's like, oh, maybe we can grab a drink sometime. I was like, yeah, sounds great. So I was like, well, like, here's my number. Just as a heads up, you're going to have to phone me because it's a landline. And he goes, yeah, I'm not going to do that. It's like, I'm sorry, what? And he's like, yeah, I don't call. And he was like, so if I can hit you up on, like Messenger, WhatsApp, or whatever, but I'm definitely not going to call. And I was like, okay, well, see you later.
Yeah,
But, and it was just like, that's a pretty extreme example, but it's also, this is
probably
what's
pretty
happening.
common. Probably pretty common, right? I mean, I have a lot of people that you try to phone and they just never answer.
Yeah. But it's just such a weird, like, if you don't want to even have that basic level of human connection up front, and we're not saying like this is, because you develop into a full relationship to marry somebody necessarily, but like just a basic human respect for another person in a way,
Mm.
like that's kind of how I take it. It's this weird, like, no, I don't even want to think of you on that extra little level of connection because I'm much more comfortable, I guess, in my own brain and projecting my own things that is through messaging is how I see it. It is more comfortable, right? Because then you read things how you want to read things, you can say things, and then if the person responds badly, well, you can just blame it on them, and you never have to take any fault or responsibility for anything. Yeah, so I don't know. It's an interesting phenomenon that I'm witnessing. I get to be a fun part of it. Obviously, I have a lot of friends that are in the craziness as well. A lot of you guys, because you've been reaching out to us to get into this. And how do you move forward when it's just kind of become the norm in a
Mhm.
way, right? Like yeah, I don't know. Just everything very casual and egotistical seems to now be expected.
Well, and that's my problem with it is I mean, it's one thing to say I would prefer,
Of course, yeah.
right? But it doesn't seem like that. It's a I'm not going to,
It's
right?
a
Like I will not respond if you call. I will only respond. And it's just like but what if I'm not comfortable texting? What if I'm
yeah,
more comfortable talking? What if I would
yeah,
rather just have this conversation? Let alone, like, for me, it seems like I'm sitting here spending 15 minutes getting this text just
yeah,
right
yeah.
when I could have just called you and
A
said,
2 minute phone
hey,
call.
why don't we just do this? And you go, yeah, okay, cool. Oh, no, it's so much easier. It seems like this idea that we're now taking this longer route
Yeah,
to convey things that we could have just said to each other and just dealt with the consequences of when we did.
yeah,
That's the part where I seem to feel like this becomes a problem, where if you're not willing to deal with the consequences of the things you say, how are we going to fucking move forward with stuff? Right?
yeah,
Like, you have to be able to, and again, we get to this idea that we're all here in the muck together, right?
yeah.
And that, I'm going to say stupid things.
We're
you
all
know,
gonna say stupid things, of
and
course.
that's but the idea that then becomes you as a stupid person,
Yeah,
right? As opposed to something that we could maybe educate each other with, grow a little bit together, right? Like, have this moment of like, hey, that made me feel like this. And you go, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to be, oh, that's okay. And now we have this better understanding of each other that we can now build something better from,
mm,
as opposed to this, I didn't like that. I'm just going to never talk to you ever again, right?
yeah.
Seems very just an odd way of, like,
Well,
I
it's
get there's
very
8
like
billion of us, but, you know.
a lot of, and I'm not saying this is true. It's just a thought I had. It could just be a lot of this fear of being seen,
Mm.
because we have so much is now contingent on our social media personalities and what we're putting out there and how people perceive us. And so I guess maybe having that genuine interaction with a person, having a phone call, treating them as just someone you want to genuinely get to know, instead of throwing up that barrier straight away, which most people do of, oh, I don't believe in relationships, because then you don't have to get close to, you keep it light. So maybe it is just this fear of, oh, if I connect with this person that's now kind of a stranger, then they might actually see me. And then, well, what happens? What if they don't actually like what they see, what would that do for me? So it's maybe easier to keep things on this kind of casual level. And you still have your other relationships that do know you, but in starting something new, maybe it's like, "Oh, I'm not ready to face that level of rejection because I've carefully now curated this kind of image and I need to maintain it." Again, not saying this is the case, it's just maybe one
Hey, buddy.
possibility. Oh, welcome, cat.
New kitty.
The studio cat has arrived.
New studio kitty. We got two of them now. Surprised the WrestleMania hasn't started yet, but yeah, and this is where it's interesting because I've seen it sliding this way, and it's odd because you hear of these people that gave up their smartphones to go for the old flip
Yeah.
style phones
Yeah.
and that kind of thing, going Luddite, to bring back an old term, right? Like taking those things and removing them because it becomes an impediment to, as opposed to a bridge that we can build, right?
Yeah.
And it's very interesting that we're still seeing so much of this going on. I mean, yeah. And again, the idea that relationships are building relationships are like a muscle that you have to work, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not something that you can just walk up to somebody and be like, "Hey, how's it going?" Right? Like you have to acknowledge that they're a
Maybe some
separate.
people can.
Hey, sure, right? Like I'm introverted by nature, so it's tougher for me, and the social anxiety doesn't help. So so I'm much happier here behind this camera, where I don't have to talk to you. But it's one of those things where in order to address that, I have to put myself here, right? Like I can't address me having these awkward thoughts and stuff going through my head without actually having okay, so was it just me, or did we, right?
Yeah.
Like, I have to bounce these things off of other people. That's been one of the things I've had to kind of reconcile in my own head is that I can't solve this shit. You can't solve this shit, right? The only way that we can solve this is with a we approach to this thing, where we try to pool all of the knowledge and information that we've gathered over the course of my lifetime, your lifetime, everybody's lifetime, and try to come to some sort of general idea of not even a consensus, but just a bubbling, right, like cauldron of stuff that we can hopefully pull the actual, right? Every once in a while, that film of oil on the top of it, you can just like you pull it like those are candies you can make where you just basically it's the film on the top and you just touch it in. You can make
Okay.
all sorts of, or like the nails where you do the cool like spring and you dip your nails in and it, right? Like it's that idea of just like taking this skim that, or once you reduce, like taking a balsamic vinegar and make a reduction of it. I fucking love that. Right? Like, but just like take all the good stuff, reduce all the crap out of it, and take the stuff that's actually left over. That's the the flavorful best. The stuff that gives life this spice, this meaning, this variety, this something to look forward to tomorrow. That's not the same thing that it was the same fucking time. Oh my god, right? 9 to 5 every day going to here, and I don't get to even have any spice. They, yeah. The idea that you would shut yourself off from those things, I feel like we do ourselves a real disservice with that.
Well, I feel like we kind of have just like two opposite sides of the spectrum on it right now. It's either people shutting themselves off entirely or going a little bit too far with because we've all met people like that too, that are overshare straight away, that instead of connecting naturally are connecting on the basis of their own kind of trauma for their need to kind of be seen and recognized. And, it's just kind of another grandstanding gesture, but under the guise of being healed, or doing their healing journey, or, all of these words I'm sure you've all heard 1,000 times from people. And it's not to...
I knew I had that there for a reason.
Perfect. I'm glad it came in handy.
I know, I was just like, yeah, that'll be perfect.
But you know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of the two sides, and you're like, okay, like, there's nothing wrong. Obviously, people do need to be able to talk about kind of their past and traumas and things that have gone through. But also, there's, like, time and place. You normally don't throw that all out there right at the start. It's kind of like you want to kind of get to know a person as well and suss them out, and you create a bond, and then you create trust via that bond. And that's when you can start to maybe relay some of that. So it's just funny that it's two very opposite sides, and I don't really know what's happened to all the meat in the middle, because that's realistically where the meat is. That's the
Right?
good stuff,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
actual, like,
Absolutely.
yes, I'm my own person with God knows my own problems and history and everything else.
You
You
are
are.
perfect, my dear,
Oh,
in
thanks.
every way.
Thanks. I needed to hear that today, Aaron.
I know. And anybody that disagrees can fucking come on, bring it.
Oh, thanks. But
Exactly.
yeah, it's just it's a really tough place, and anyone out there that's single and in this world knows it well. It's just, having genuine, hey, let's just get to know each other genuinely and see where it goes, whilst having respect for each other,
That's the
is almost not a
problem.
thing, right?
That's
It's
the problem
either
right
you
there.
just take it casual and see where it goes, or it's full on 100%, gotta be like in it, and you're like, holy crap, no. Like, it's, again, any other relationship. Would you apply that same logic to, a new coworker that just started?
Hell yeah.
All right, so maybe you do, I don't know. But, like, it's just that, like, you wouldn't apply that same. You'd be like, no, it's a person, you genuinely just try to get to know them, and then you slowly start to create a bond and whatever else and form from there. You either like them, you don't, right? But this, like, it's an all or nothing response straight away. And so no wonder it's all fucked up right now, because that's not life.
No relationship starts fully formed.
No.
Right, and that's I think what we've lost the art of is building relationships. I don't know if it's pandemic kind of ruined a lot of that. I mean, I know that it was tough for me to kind of get back out and try to be friendly even again after having to lock ourselves down for all that time and having to essentially kind of I think that was part of it also, is that in the back of your brain you almost kind of view everyone as infectious, which makes them the enemy.
Well, yeah, that was
Right?
definitely what was
I
fed to
mean,
us to.
yeah,
Yeah.
which would kind of, and again, once you've made that click of near the enemy, now it's hard to get back from, right? Like now I've got to now convince my brain that, I'm convinced that this is, a march. It's so much easier to convince your brain that someone's an enemy than it is to convince your brain that someone's a friend.
Yeah.
Right? It can take one thing, one snap, one quick, one little oops, and now you're an enemy. But to have to build bridges, to have to get past those things, to have to actually see that as another person, as another human being that's made mistakes, that's done exactly, that's just muddling through just like you. I think that's the part that are, and I'm hoping this is just a neuroscience thing that we can get to, where it's like even negative comments resonate in your brain louder than positive ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping that we can have the same kind of thing here. Well, once we recognize that, it's easier for your brain to make an enemy, right? And so you have to work at making friends, right? And maybe that's where we've had, people are just so used to making enemies out of people and having to be this quick thing that if you can't make friends the same way, what's the use? Right? If we don't have that instant connection, hey?
Yeah. That's an interesting point to bring up, because, yeah, we're in, not just in relationships, but we're instant gratification society and everything, right? So if that's what we're expecting,
If
is
you
an
don't immediately make my
immediate,
heart go da-dum, 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 da-dum,
yeah,
hopefully in
then
a good way, not in a he's driving us off the cliff, But if you don't feel that immediate, just like, oh, I need to meet this, I need to know this person kind of feeling, that doesn't disregard them as a person, right? Like that just means that maybe there's a couple layers you got to peel off of this thing to find out the parts that do resonate with you. The idea that inside of every person out there isn't some kernel of something that you could use to build a relationship with is ludicrous, right? There's something inside, some thing that you do that they do as well, some part of you that we can use to build this thing, as opposed to all these other million other things that we could use to tear it apart, right?
Yeah.
And this is, again, this analogy, building stuff is hard. I get that.
Yeah. Well, and I think maybe you hit on something important there with the, just the instant gratification of it, because it's hard to, I guess, get to know people. It's like an onion, right? Like, you got many layers, and you're like, do I really want to sit and peel a fucking onion right now?
Well, and then
or do I want to just eat a cheeseburger from McDonald's?
Yeah. And more that kind of feels like
those were
a lot of the
things.
problems that we're having now is that just building stuff is hard.
Yeah.
I think, and mending bridges, mending fences, building up these relationships, all these things that we talk about on this show here, really boil down to the fact that building things is hard. This podcast has been hard to build. Building a subscribership, we're over 4,000, has been hard. You know, it has not been at any point of this just something that we could just be like, all right, click, done.
Yeah.
Right? We've had to work at this. We've had to build this relationship. And the idea that, you know, any of this came easy. I mean, we tried to make it look as easy as we could.
Effortless.
You know? But it's the same thing with any relationship, right? You're going to have to slog through some muck. And frankly, I look at it as a service I do for you, that I will slog through some muck for you, you know? And I hope that that in turn will mean that you'll slog through some muck for me. I hope that, you know, this team that we're building here is going to be a team that'll slog through some muck for each other. Right? that we've got each other's backs, and that we're going to, you know, that we're building some sort of familial team thing here where we're, you know, part of something that's hopefully working towards something grander than what we came in with.
That's what it's about. And that's actually what makes you feel good about yourself at the end of the day, is having to work for things. Right? And that's for absolutely anything in life, you know, like if you go and actually put hard work in, like let's like at the most obvious example, just a working day. If you're out and you like tend the fields and you are like, you know, doing something, it's hard, but at the end of the day, you're going to feel that level of accomplishment, you know, you're going to sleep better, you're going to feel better about yourself, sort of thing, you know, as opposed to not, right? When you're just, yeah, things come easy, no big deal, everything's just the click of a button, boom, got what I want. You might be tricking yourself into thinking that, okay, that's better, but at the end of the day, I would argue that you're probably not as fulfilled within yourself, you know, like, okay, yeah, I have everything, but I didn't have to like work hard to get it. So therefore you don't respect it as much, maybe.
Well, and that's, I think,
you know,
the side of that is that it's hard to build things, but the benefits are far outweigh the benefits of destroying.
Well, of
right?
course,
like,
yeah.
Sometimes, yeah, you got to creatively destroy something in order to build something better, right? But, you know, for the most part, if you're just walking around kicking stuff over, how do you feel at the end of the day, right? Versus if you spent a day building, creating, conceiving, taking pieces and actually having to make them into something, you know, like how do you feel at the, like this thing here, this is one of my proudest moments, having this thing right here today, right now, that we're talking to you right now. This is, I gotta say, you know, I've built a lot of stupid things.
We're cheersing to that.
This is one of the stupidest. One of the best stupid things I've ever built. You know, the idea that we might actually have something here that we can talk about how to make dating better for people, how to get past these biases and try to make it so that, you know, we see each other as human beings again, instead of these preconceived notions of caricatures that we carry around inside of our heads of what people have to conform to in order for us to even want to be able to be part of their existence, you know?
Well, that's it. And just trying to recognize these things, because it's become so pervasive in our culture that it's just normal, that maybe we're not looking at it.
That actually is probably a good portion of it. It's one of those just like Dunning-Kruger effects where if you're not aware it's happening, oh, I didn't even realize I was dismissing everybody around me as not really a human being worth respecting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, of course, that's never the intention, right?
Exactly, right?
And that's what we try to get into, right? Is this like, no, that's never the intention. So when people are like, you know, quick to label and, you know, this person's being a jerk and whatever else, you're like, no, it's very rarely is that the intention. So let's just try and draw some attention to what is going on, and maybe like for everyone it's a good time to just kind of reflect and go like, okay, well, what am I valuing, what am I building? And you know, there could be the whole, like we said earlier on in the episode, there's kind of that fear of being seen. So if you have to work hard and you have to build something and you have to actually give a bit of yourself for it, that is really, really scary. Because if that comes crashing down, you're like, oh shit, like that's a piece of me now that kind of is crashing down with it. And do I really want to lose that? That really hurt last time, and I'd rather not that happen again. So
the last time they held a mirror up in front of my face, I had to look at that wart right on the end of my nose, and
like,
it
oh
really
dear God, I'm
traumatized
fucking
me.
hideous.
And I never want to see that mirror again. I mean, that is a good analogy for a lot of this, right? Like at one point, someone said to you, hey, did you know you were doing that? And you went, fuck you, you fucking, right? You know? And that mirror is and it's not malicious, right? Like, I mean, I'm generally, I don't come at you saying things to you out of any kind of malice, any kind of trying to tear you down in any way. What I'm really trying to do is be like, hey, I'm not sure if you were aware, but you got this thing growing out of your nose, and it just, I don't know if a snip would help, but right. You know, and I get that most of the response nowadays is just a big old fuck you, right? Like even, you know, driving, you know, give someone one flash, which I thought was a please in terms of, hey, just not sure if you were aware, right?
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Oh, sorry.
That was the prettiest sneeze ever.
Thanks. Really trying to hold it back so I didn't blow everyone's eardrums off.
Well, good job.
Thanks. Really working on my sneezing game.
Ooh, ah. Well, you wouldn't want to, you know, upset a date or something by sneezing.
Who knows what upsets people anymore?
Well, that is kind of where we are.
it.
And I get that that's, again, like, I really am more just talking this up into building stuff is hard. But just like, building stuff is hard. And it's just that cognitive load that we're all under. Like, I get, like, if everybody's here and now you want me to add an extra, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I've got to deal with their problems and their bullshit that they're bringing into this relationship. And, you know, why can't everybody just come pristine without any crap smeared all over them? You know?
I'm allowed to have a bunch of crap
Exactly.
that I carry, but no one else. I don't got time for your crap.
You know, it's this
be perfect.
Instagram perfect idea that, you know, we're going to deal with people who at all times are wonderful people to be around and never have their own shit to deal with and never have times when they just can't hold back the tears, you know, is disingenuous to the human experience.
Yeah.
And I just I feel like you're closing yourself off to what this thing is supposed to be. The idea that it's supposed to be this happy rainbow sunshine, unicorns galloping past, trailing unicorn or rainbow poop behind them at all times is just disingenuous to what this is, where no, there's a fucking lion over there, dude, and he may eat your fucking face if you don't, right? Like, and I'm not telling you this to make you be like, oh, what an asshole, this lion is just trying to do, right? Like, what I'm trying to tell you is that there's a problem that we right? Like,
well,
know?
I feel like the ultimate irony in the whole thing is like in trying to keep yourself open, because that's always what you hear is, I'm just trying to be open to all experiences, blah, blah. You're actually closing yourself off to the only experience that matters, which is like the human connection experience, you know? So it's just like, and no wonder you have people that are just so unhappy and anxious and depressed. And it's like, yeah.
Despite all outward appearance. And this is the part where
well,
it
and
becomes,
that's it too, right? Is
even the ones that you think are got it all together. You got that. You're good. We don't need to. You're fine. You don't need any help. Oh shit. Oh, he's hanging.
Yeah,
oh no, he just fell off. Oh shit.
Ooh,
right? He looked like he was okay, but
nobody ever saw this coming.
Sad but true.
But it's because we don't allow people to actually be human in a certain way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like I said earlier, there's that polarity right now. If there's too much on the other side versus not enough, but we're not really allowing for any in between. It's like, you got to suck it up, present yourself in this certain way, be a certain way. Don't bother, don't burden other people, don't do this. Oh, unless it's in this very specific way, because that's culturally now very trendy to be, you know, on your healing journey of talking and comparing your traumas, right? But like this whole mess in between, we're not really allowing so much. And yeah, of course that's going to weigh on you, because it's going back to what you're saying. You're not letting people be human.
Yeah, and I mean, I go to my own journey of ADD where I've tried to hide so much of these things, you know, from your view.
Yeah.
Right? Where we all try to present this, I did my hair today. Right? Like, no, I showered today. I did the whole, right? Like, you know, and the idea that, you know, sometimes you just got some crap on you, right? You know, and you'd hope that someone would help you to recognize it and wash it off, right?
Well, yeah, instead of ridiculing you for it or demeaning you for it, being like, hey, you know what? You got a little crap on you, but you know what? I had some crap on me the other day, and I wish someone told me, because I went with that crap on me all day long.
Right? And I got home at the end of the day, and your partner was like, hey, did you know that you... And they were like, you I talked to 15 people today. They didn't say nothing to me, right? You know, and the idea that we just allow people to go around with crap all over them, you know, and I get that, you know, it's this tough position now where, you know, it's trying to help and feeling persecuted for it. We're going to put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, we don't talk about the crap. Don't talk about, I know it stinks. I know, I can see it too, but we don't talk about it.
You know, we use the analogy of the elephant shit on the floor thing, where if it was lying in the middle of the floor, you wouldn't just walk around it, you'd clean that shit up. You know, and the idea that we go about our daily lives dropping shit behind us at all times and never thinking of the aftermath, never thinking of the people that have now slipped in that slimy, oh, God damn it. Right? Like, you know, the idea that, you know, and I mean, we all have this shit. The idea that we're not helping each other to clean it up, I think is the part that gets me. That instead of, you know, trying to make this a system where we're propping each other up, where it feels like people feel like we're all just shooting each other down. And somehow that's going to build something out of the ashes, I guess, if we just burn everything around us, that, oh, we'll just be able to build something from that. No, I don't think that's right. Like in the end, like, yeah, sometimes you got to light a match, but for the most part, the building is the actual part of this that we're looking forward to, right? The idea that, you know, once we've kind of stripped out the bullshit, that now we've built something that will stand. Yeah. That will stand the test of no matter what you throw at this thing, it's just going to slide off, right? Like, you know, that it's not going to stick to, that you can't make it because we've taken all the bullshit out of this thing, right? We've taken all of the grandstanding, all the insta-perfect, all the, you know, all the stuff that was just getting in the way of these actual relationships and how do we connect with each other with a C instead of a Q, you know? How do we build this thing? How do we make it so that people aren't fearful of what we're going to build? You know, that the idea that we're building something better, right? That having more relationships with better and with disparate people that don't share your beliefs in any way, that completely disagree with you in some instances. I mean, I get that you're perfect. You agree with me at all times. But there may be times where you have to disagree with someone and somehow build a relationship with them despite that.
Yeah, oh, what a crazy idea.
Right? Like
sometimes people disagree.
Well, let alone, like, sometimes people stick around with each other even after they have disagreed. God. You know, even after we've had this major blowout, knock 'em down fight, we've found some kernel that we could build from after that, as I cared about you enough to fight for you, right? Fighting with you doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not fighting for you, that we're fighting against you, right? Having a fight, as far as I'm concerned, just means that I actually gave enough of a fuck to not just walk away, to not just be like, I'm not even dealing with this, and just leave it alone. Right? Like the fact that I stuck around to actually be like, no, I care about you enough to actually, like, let's hash this shit out, right? One way or another. If it means that we got to go our separate ways at the end because there's no way we can make that work, hey, that's sometimes how life goes. But the idea that you haven't taken the time to try, that we haven't tried to build this thing, that we just were happy with destroying it, you know, it's, yeah. Welcome to the land of no easy answers.
No kidding.
We're going to build something here. And I think we should end it there because that's...
It'll just keep going on and on.
You know, and again, just the idea that we're here to build something with you. And we hope that you're here building with us and that you're taking these stupid little discussions that we have and finding the kernel of truth, and that, you know, we're here to build. You know, destroying things is the universe's job. The universe is going to destroy shit for you without you even having any, you have no say in most of the destruction that's going to happen, right? You know, and the only thing that we kind of really do have control over is the things we build, for the most part, right? You know, things will get torn down around you, and sometimes they need to. Sometimes that mirror was pointing out that, oh, that piece of crap, right? Oh, okay, that was in the way. You know, and sometimes you needed to have that held up in front, and it's not easy. I get it, right? You don't want to hear it. You didn't want to hear it when I said it. You don't want to hear it now. You probably won't want to hear it tomorrow, right? But I'm the same way, where I get that, you get that knee jerk, just like, fuck you, buddy. How dare you tell me, well, I'm not perfect, right? Like, right? But then brain goes into, okay, yeah, but you know. Right?
We're
Like,
a bit of a port
there was maybe something, I mean, I'd hesitate to suggest that maybe there was a kernel of truth.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, it's a great place to end it. You know, the world is going to do enough destruction on its own, so why don't you just focus on the building?
Get back to building, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always worth it in the end.
On that note, help build our subscriber list. Tell your friends.
Nice.
Get them onto here. Find our Facebook, find our Twitter, whatever we're doing, not doing.
Whatever we're doing on whatever day we feel like doing it.
You know, we sit
on
and talk
board.
about how much we hate social media, and then we're like, hey, get on our social media and go check out our social media.
And then they're like, oh yeah,
we're
they
not
don't really
doing
do
anything
anything
with.
on it,
We're
yeah.
never doing anything with Facebook. Anyway.
We'll be expanding our team, and then somebody will do that for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the plan.
You
So
know,
anyway.
this has been mostly just like throwing it out there and being like, we're gonna? No, I don't think we're gonna.
Yeah. Anyway, we're on it.
We're on it. But yeah, join, subscribe, get your friends.
And
You know,
please comment. Let us
yeah.
know what you think about this whole situation. If you have any stories you want to share, or any, thoughts of how to move forward and how to get us out of this kind of predicament we've gotten ourselves in, we would love to hear from you.
Tell us
Absolutely.
stories of when you had to take a sledgehammer to something to knock it down so you could build something better from the rubble. You know, or just tell us where you didn't have to take a sledgehammer.
Tell us where you built stuff. I want to hear
Tell
about
us the
the
stuff you
building.
built.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening.
Have a good one, everyone.